Hi, good evening, everyone. Wow, this seems really loud. Is it too loud? No, it's fine. Good evening, good afternoon. I'm very excited to be here. I feel like my IQ level has just gone up, a few notches just by being at the LSE. So, big thank you to the LSE SU India Forum for inviting me. I'm also thrilled to be here because I get to talk to and pick the brains of one of the most interesting filmmakers currently working in Hindi cinema, Kabir Khan. For those of you who don't know, 2016 is Kabir's 10th year in the movie business. 2016 was...
That's right. Kabul Express was 2006.
Yeah, so it's been a decade in the movies. He's made 5 films till now, which includes, of course, the second biggest blockbuster in the history of Indian cinema. What is it, Kabir?
Bajrangi Bhaijaan.
They knew that. And what's interesting is that Kabir isn't just a filmmaker making blockbusters. He's working with big budgets. He's working with big stars. But he's making movies which have a political point of view. I sat down and I said, well, who else does this? And there's not too many of them. I could come up with Prakash Jha, early Mani Ratnam, and I think it stops there.
Well, I mean, Raju has politics in his films.
Raju has politics, but disguised under...
Yeah, true, but there are not too many, you're right, especially in mainstream cinema.
Yeah, in mainstream cinema, there isn't. So, Kabir, what is the negotiation that a filmmaker like you does? You come from a background of documentary. You have... traveled, he's been to over 60 countries. He's, he's sort of what is it? NRI of Afghanistan? So how do you sort of do that dance between making mainstream cinema, which has to be all things to all people, but also put in a point of view, and especially a political point of view?
For me, really, it came naturally because I was doing documentaries and as you mentioned, I've traveled more than 60 countries. I traveled with a journalist, Mr. Saeed Naqvi, who, Saeed Bhai as I call him, was obsessed at that point in time when we only got international and world news from CNN and BBC. He was obsessed with reporting about world affairs with an Indian stroke South Asian context. And this is much before, the days before NDTV and the channels that we have today. Their journalists started traveling. So I was fresh out of film school, out of Jamia, and here was a man who was saying, let's just travel the world. You pick up the camera and come with me, and we'll, interview Nelson Mandela and Yasser Arafat, and wherever we just point to a map. Literally, we used to have a map in our office, and Saeed Bhai used to call me Khan Saab. He said, Khan Saab, ab kidhar jana hai? And we used to say, let's go here. This problem is happening here. And within like 4-5 days, we used to be there. So I think that really shaped me. Because I started realizing with those travels, and especially with Saeed Bhai, that there's a huge gap between the stories that are being told to us on this sort of CNN and BBC combined, and the ground reality. And that gap between the ground reality and what's being reported started fascinating me incredibly, because even my first film, Kabul Express, really is about that, or even the next one, New York, is about that. It's about stories that should have been told to us but were not told to us. Kabul Express is of course autobiographical, and it started off with my experiences in Afghanistan as a documentary filmmaker, where we interacted with members of the Taliban. This is, of course, post 9/11, when the whole Taliban regime was crumbling, and we had jumped in. Of course, there's a whole story which I can, of course, as we go on, I'll give you the anecdotes of how
Tell us how you stayed alive because of Bollywood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when we were talking about the soft power of Bollywood, and I said, yes, there is a soft power of Bollywood, because I'm alive today because of the soft power of Bollywood. So what happened was, this is the year 2001, and this is post 9/11, and the Americans are bombing Afghanistan, and I had done a small documentary in '96 in Afghanistan, which we couldn't complete. I had been commissioned by the International Committee of the Red Cross to go and make a film on the effects of war on children. That was really a difficult film to shoot or to put together. And added to our problems was the fact that Taliban was just about 20 kilometers outside Kabul, and they were shelling every day. So, I mean, things became a little too hot, and we decided, let's retreat and come back maybe after a month or two. We left, and 2 months later, the Taliban had overrun Kabul. So for the next 5 years, as Indian citizens, it was impossible to go back to Afghanistan. Post 9/11, I had been doing documentaries in those 5 years, and we started getting requests from international, commissioning agencies. Would you want to go and do some work in Afghanistan? We jumped at it and said, yeah, we are ready to go in. And they jumped at it because there were not enough madmen at that point in time to go into Afghanistan with a camera. So but because we couldn't go through the usual Peshawar route, we had to overfly. We had to go to Uzbekistan. From there, drive to Tajikistan, and then got stuck in Dushanbe, trying every possible way to enter Afghanistan. We tried to drive in, and there was an avalanche. We wanted to take a helicopter that crashed a day before we were supposed to go in it. It was like, you name it, it was happening. It was bizarre. It was like a surreal film. And I remember that point in time, and this is years after I'd stopped working with Saeed Bhai, and one day we get a message saying there's a very senior Indian journalist coming to Dushanbe, and I said, who? And this is Saeed Naqvi. So I left a note for him at the reception. He was coming to the same hotel, and I said, welcome Saeed Bhai to the dead end. And we were out somewhere, and I came back in the evening, and there was Saeed Naqvi saying, why did you leave this note for me? What do you mean by dead end? So I had to explain to him, how we've been here for 14 days, and there's no way of going in. He tried, speaking to the embassy, tried everything, but just couldn't go. Finally, I think it was the 18th or the 19th day, and Saeed Bhai said, let's just pack up and go back to Delhi. This is impossible. We're not going to be able to enter Afghanistan. I don't know why. That day, me and my friend Rajan, we said, okay, let's give it one last shot. And he said, Kabir, listen to me. This is experience speaking. Don't go. It's over. Let's go back. I said, I want to give it one last shot. We went to the airfield, and there was this Russian military helicopter taking in medical supplies into Kabul. And we were desperate to get onto that chopper. I said, I'm ready to do anything. So we decided to do things the Indian way, the way we get things done in India. And we took this Russian helicopter pilot aside, and we showed him a few dollars. And he grabbed 2,000 of them, and he hid us in his cargo. And I made a call to Saeed Bhai. We used to use satellite phones there because that was the only mode of communication in Afghanistan those days. I made a call to him. I said, Saeed Bhai, we're off. And we took off, and it was like a 40-minute ride through the Hindu Kush mountains, and suddenly this helicopter just comes down close to Kabul. We don't know where Kabul is. It's just mountains everywhere, and he just brings it down, literally like 20 feet above the ground, and he says, okay, jump. I said, what do you mean jump? You've taken $2,000. The least you can do is put us down on the ground. He said, no, jump, because some technical issue about once it goes down, it needs minimum time to sort of restart, and he can't go down. He can't disappear off the radar. He says, jump. And that's what we did. We jumped. And this is exactly the way the scene is in Kabul Express, where John Abraham and Arshad Varsi jump off the chopper. So we jump off this chopper with our equipment, and this chopper takes off. And we're in the middle of nowhere. All we can see is snow-capped mountains all over. It was the end of November, really cold. And then in the distance, we see this one man walking towards us, who's just seen these two guys jump off a chopper, and this chopper taking off. And as he comes closer and closer, I realize he's probably about 6 feet 4 inches by 4 feet wide. And he's got this Kalashnikov in his hand, and he's cocking the Kalashnikov and saying something in Dari. And I thought, this is it. This is the end. This is the way it's going to end. But all kinds of scenarios. Will they find our bodies here? Because God knows where this is. Do they take the bodies back, or do they just dump them here? And he's coming, and all we kept saying as he was saying something to us in Dari, just kept saying, Hindustan, Hindustan, Hindustan. Because we knew that the Northern Alliance was, very warm towards Indians. And most of the Mujahideen in those areas were from the Northern Alliance. And I said, Hindustan, and suddenly when he heard us, he stops and smiles, and this 6 feet 4 inch big Mujahideen starts singing, Mere Sapno Ki Rani Kab Aayegi. That day, Bollywood saved my life, and I knew that Bollywood has huge soft power. And so that's how the whole thing began. And, it's these experiences that sort of happened during the filming of these documentaries that led to the script of Kabul Express.
So, Kabir, because you do nutty things like jump off a helicopter in the middle of nowhere, is this why John Abraham calls you the suicide bomber?
Where did you read that?
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, so John, no, that was actually quite a dangerous situation. So, see, this was...
As opposed to this one, which was not.
No, I mean, to put a hero into this sort of situation. See, this was 2001 when I did this. 2001, 2002, I went back for some more work. And then I'll just tell you how Kabul Express began, actually. So in this trip, we went to one prison called Doab, which was in the Panjshir Valley. And this is where the foreign mercenaries who were fighting alongside the Taliban were being captured and being sent to this prison, which is about, near the Tajik border, about a 9-hour drive in those days, because there were no roads left after the bombings. These people were being sent there, and they were being sorted from there to be sent to Guantanamo Bay. So every journalist wanted to be in Doab because that's where the scoop was. And the Americans were doing a lot of checkbook journalism in those days, and they were ready to pay any amount of money to go in there. But again, it's we went into the Ministry of Defense and we said we're from India, and they said, Hindustan, and they just put us in a jeep, me and Rajan, and we were driven to this Doab, this prison, which is like a natural fortress. It's surrounded by mountains, and Doab, because it's two rivers, so the two rivers come and sort of encircle this prison. We go in there and they just open the gates of the prison and they, send us in, and suddenly in front of us are these, 35, 40 of these most dreaded Al-Qaeda terrorists sitting in front of us, staring at us. It was like a zoo. Like they were looking at us, we were looking at them, and we didn't know what to do. And there were a few Pakistani mercenaries as part of that entire alliance. And obviously we started speaking to them because they knew our language. The rest were Arabs and Chechens and Burma. So we said, started speaking with the ones from Pakistan. And then we stayed the night there because there's no way to go back. And they cooked korma roti for us, and we, spent the night in the prison. Next day when we were going to go away, there was one of them who we used to speak with very often, Khalid. He was the most articulate. But of course, every time we switched on the camera, he would speak a different language. Every time we switched off the camera, he would start telling us everything about the Taliban and what it was about. And he came running behind us and he said, "Can I please make a phone call from your satellite phone?" And I was like really nervous about that because we'd heard stories about how, the Americans were locking on to satellite phones, and, the next thing you know is there's a cruise missile coming for you and your phone. So, because the call's been made by somebody from the Taliban. But somehow we sort of relented, and the jailer also, said, let him make a call. And this man, Khalid, made a call. And I realized in that phone call that this is the first time in 4 years that he's speaking to his family. His family thought he's dead. And then he called for his daughter. And his daughter came on the phone. And this big man, Khalid, just crumbled into a sobbing father. And in that moment lay the seed of the idea of Kabul Express, where I just wanted to sort of explore the human story behind, I think there's a story behind everybody. You might agree with the ideology, might not agree with the ideology, but there's a human story behind everything. That's how it all started. And I wrote this script, landed up in Bombay. That's, of course, another story, but managed to get John and Arshad there. 2005 is actually when we entered Afghanistan. And, for those who are familiar with what was happening in Afghanistan, 2005, Taliban was passé. It was over. There was, it was a non-existent force. There were some sleeper cells operating out of, across the border. So we thought everything is safe. We set up the production and started shooting. The first 14 days, 3 suicide bombings took place in Kabul. And at that point, everybody was perplexed. Like, they didn't know what's happening because Taliban had never used suicide bombings as a tool. And these are, of course, elements coming back from Iraq at that point in time. And today we know it as the Taliban resurgence, but at that point, nobody knew what's happening. And on the 14th day of our shoot, I get a call from the Indian ambassador, and he said, "What are you guys doing?" I said, "We're shooting." He said, "Well, pack up as soon as you can and come to the embassy." I mean, he sounded a little serious, so we packed up early, and me and my friend Rajan went there, and the military attaché was also sitting over there, and there was an Afghan intelligence person, and he said, "Well, we've received this tip-off, and it's a death threat from the Taliban. They're doing open radio communication about how they're going to pick up you and John and Arshad, and describing in detail what they do to us, and make us an example of how they don't want filming in Afghanistan." Because what was happening was that the moment we started filming, we were the first international international crew to film in post-Taliban Afghanistan. And obviously, became a very exotic story for news networks. And so BBC did a story on us, CNN did a story. There were German networks who were doing stories on us about this, Bollywood film being shot in Afghanistan. And this is obviously not the message that Taliban wanted being sent across, that everything is so normal in Afghanistan now that you can come and shoot a Bollywood film. So they sent in, and we were shooting a lot on this, the road that links Kabul through Jalalabad to Peshawar. So they had been sending spies on trucks and observing our movement. So they had all the information about us. So this came in, and obviously I had to come in, and I didn't want to spread panic, but obviously I had to take John and Arshad into confidence, and I made them realize what is happening. And I sent them back for 5 days, and we sat and we discussed what we need to do. Spoke to all the officials in Afghanistan, and they took it very personally, actually. So they started getting into the zone. I remember on the fifth day, when I was almost thinking that I'll pack up and go back, the Minister of Security came to me and he said, if tomorrow you go back to Bombay, it'll be a defeat for Afghanistan. And I was like, I don't need this emotional baggage right now, because I need to look after my crew. But then the kind of security they gave us was incredible. I don't think even heads of state get that kind of security. The next day, landed up. Our hotel was also, in those days, the hotels were not 3-star, 4-star, 5-star according to luxury. They were 5-star according to security. So we were in a 5-star hotel because it had rocket-proof walls, and it had a rocket-proof bunkers, and it had armed guards all the time. And then landed up 60 armed commandos. And I say armed, I mean armed by Afghan standards. You come to a hotel, and they said, now you shoot wherever you want. And they started sanitizing the locations. We would reach these locations. I was shooting in November, December, minus 15 degrees up in the Hindu Kush mountains, and we would reach at 5 in the morning and see these silhouettes of snipers sitting on the mountains all around, who would sanitize the thing. So obviously John was not very happy with, because I think top of the list was John. I think they'd get the maximum mileage by, shooting him in the head, not me. So John would get very, he'd keep every day, he'd say, you're a bloody suicide bomber, yaar. I don't know why I've come over here. So that's how it came. We went through a lot of adventure in that film.
But Kabir, tell me, when you have a background like this, when you've seen things like this and experienced things like this, how do you then, not necessarily dumb it down, but how do you blunt what you want to say? Because when you make mainstream cinema, it really has to be all things to all people.
Yeah, you're right about that. It was a process for me. I realized that, yes, there is, like you said, there is a bit of dumbing down that you actually do. And when I don't know whether I should use the word dumbing down, but you need to start simplifying what you're saying, because, I think there's no more diverse audience in the world than a mainstream Indian audience. I mean, you're making a film, if you're making a big mainstream film, you have to cater to, literally the rickshaw puller in Meerut and the, South Bombay banker, and you can't piss off either of them, because you need the entire audience to come in for your film. So it becomes very difficult and tricky, and especially when it comes to politics. I remember when I first came in, firstly, they all said, never tell anybody, because I was peddling my script of Kabul Express, going around meeting people. They said, Kisi ko batana nahi, don't tell anybody you're a documentary filmmaker. It's a bad word, literally. If it's a documentary, they'll think this guy's going to bore the hell out of us, so let's not even engage with him.
Right next to festival, no? Festival film, documentary film.
Festival film, and yeah, documentary walas are probably the lowest, the bottom of the barrel. So it was difficult, and actually I got a backing from, in those days, what was considered the most mainstream, and people who made sort of cinema. They were called what? Chiffon romances. Yes, Raj. At the end of the day, the studio that backed me was Rashad's Films, and what Adi told me about Kabul Express was, he said, see, I'm a completely apolitical person. I don't really, understand the nuances of what's happening in Afghanistan. But he said that what I liked about Kabul Express is that when I needed to know the politics in the story, you brought them out and told them to me, and that allowed me to follow the characters and follow the story. So if you can do that in mainstream cinema, then why not? So my next attempt was New York. New York was actually about Kabul Express is still closer to home, because it's happening in South Asia. There's India and Pakistan who are active players in that theater. But New York was about post 9/11 illegal detainees. So not only was it a film which was very political, which was taboo in mainstream cinema, but also about politics of another country, which, the common sort of wisdom in Bollywood is, why would anybody care? Why would an Indian care about what's happening in 9/11? But I used to sort of take the position, which is something I used to keep telling all the journalists who used to ask me. I said, you really tell me that 9/11 didn't change your life, and then we can say that why should we care? But I think it did. So let's look at what happened over there. New York went on to become surprisingly a very big commercial success. It did numbers which were far beyond what political films at that point had done. So then I started realizing that, see, for me it comes naturally. I always need to put a real context to my films. I know that I want to make films in the mainstream space because it's the most powerful medium in the country. And what I feel is that if you need to discuss an issue, you need to discuss it in the mainstream space. Because unfortunately, what happens is in niche cinema, it becomes a case of preaching to the converted. So you do a film, but the people who are coming, it is such a small number, and these are people who are anyway in agreement with you. They're in agreement with what you're talking about, the issue at hand. So it's not really then taking up an issue and throwing it up. Like for example, for me, when I did New York, which is about illegal detentions, I was hearing reports about the film doing exceedingly well in Gujarat, and this is in the year 2009 was New York's. And I was wondering, but is it ringing a bell somewhere in Gujarat? I mean, what are people relating it to? This whole polarization that is taking place, this whole sort of stereotyping of a community that's taken place post 9/11, which also started happening in Gujarat. So why is this doing so well in Gujarat? What are people thinking? So, I mean, this could only happen because it was mainstream cinema. Had it been a small film, it wouldn't go anywhere. Bajrangi Bhaijaan, for example. Now, Bajrangi Bhaijaan could have easily been a small, intimate story, with a smaller star told in a smaller canvas, but essentially the same story. But because it had Salman Khan in it, it just went so wide. And, the message travels so far. And that is what is important. It is difficult sometimes to bring in the politics. Ek Tha Tiger, I mean, it was a huge commercial success, but it went all over the place. For me, it just...
I felt like, somewhere your vision seemed compromised.
Yeah, it was a beast that went out of control, It was the first time I was working with Salman Khan.
What is that like?
I must say that I think a superstar film has a dynamic of its own. I mean, a film with Salman, Shah Rukh, or Amir, I think are completely different from a film that you would do with any other actor. There's just a certain different way you approach them, the way you put them together. Ek Tha Tiger was... in a sense, actually, Ek Tha Tiger was a very subversive film. It was saying that you're taking not only India's biggest star in terms of filmdom, in terms of the biggest star, Salman Khan, but you're also taking this tiger who's just like the biggest hero of the intelligence services. And if he falls in love with somebody from across the border, he's going to say, just because the person is from the other side of the line, do I fall out of love with this person, or do we just, take on everybody and just carry on with our lives? But I think... In Tiger, in approaching Tiger and in trying to convince Salman to do certain things and him trying to figure out what I'm trying to do, there was a lot of tussle. I think he was not used to probably, Salman is a huge star. And what happens, unfortunately, with a lot of these stars is that when they say something, nobody presents a counterpoint. So then they get used to, okay, I'm saying this must be good because everybody's nodding and doing it. So when you say, no, but this just doesn't make any sense. So I said, why is this guy saying this? Why is he saying that? I've made 10 blockbusters in a row. This guy's just made 2 films. Kabul Express for them wouldn't even count as a film because it's too small. Then why is he opposing me all the time? But what I respect about Salman, and I think the reason why I went on to make another film with him and the kind of film that we did, and maybe I will make another film with him, is that nowhere in that tussle, nowhere in that confrontation was there a position of... it's my way or the highway. There was never that arrogance of a superstar. Listen, I'm a superstar and I want it this way, and let's not do it your way. He would sulk, he would argue, but sometimes he would do what I was asking him to do. And I think that made me respect him. And then I realized after that, in Bajrangi, I said, see, there are 2 ways of looking at doing these big blockbuster films. Either we can let our sort of sensibilities keep clashing, which it did in Ek Tha Tiger, because I came from this documentary background where I tried to keep things more real. I was always trying to find a little bit of logic in characters and situations, and he was coming from a world where, logic, what logic? Let's just do what is nice.
When was the last time Salman Khan met logic?
Exactly. So So I said, okay, either we can do that, either we can keep clashing and then we won't end up doing anything, or we can just blend these two sensibilities. Bring in the stardom of a Salman Khan, bring in that larger-than-life persona of a Salman Khan, but set him in a slightly more, realistic setting, make the characters more logical, his motivations more logical, his actions more real, and let's see what happens. And that's how I took Bajrangi Bhaijaan to him, and I went to him and I said, see, Salman, this is the antithesis of what you've been doing for the last 9 years. I have done one big action thriller with you, but I don't feel excited as a director doing this. Let's do this film. You're not going to beat up anybody in this. You're only going to get beaten up. There is no real love story. It's basically about you and this 6-year-old girl. But something in him clicked, and I knew it would because, in all the conversations post-Tiger, we became friends. There are certain things he feels very strongly about, and they're never properly articulated because he's not very good with the press, as you know.
Very well.
Yeah, he just doesn't sort of feel comfortable sitting and opening up to the press. But of course, like half a Bacardi bottle down, he opens up to me and then he talks about things. And I realized he feels very strongly, say, about the whole, the composite culture, the aspect of secularism that our country enjoys. And he's a living example of that. And I said, at this point in time, if you feel so strongly about something like this, you should say it. You should articulate it properly and say it because it'll mean a lot. And that is something that he took up. He said, yeah, I think you're absolutely right about it. Let's do this film. And that's how Bajrangi Bhaijaan began, and it was something where we were able to bring out and spread this. I won't say spread, but actually give out this important, at least layers in the film, which spoke about what is happening in our country today. What has happened is post Bajrangi Bhaijaan, a lot of people have been talking about the India-Pakistan aspect, which is a very important aspect of the film. But for me, when I began Bajrangi, what was more important was the borders within. The first half of the film actually deals with the borders within. How do communities within India feel about each other? Things like people not giving houses to another community. So a lot of it was done with humor. I think that's the reason why it probably got accepted more easily, which I think is very important in mainstream cinema. If you use humor, then I think it's an easier pill to swallow. People, I think, try to figure out what is he trying to say, but they laugh at it, and then I think they go back and think about it. So and that's what really worked in Bajrangi, and that's, I think, the ideal blend that I would like to do. Bring in the superstardom, the star power of somebody like a Salman or a Shah Rukh or Amir or Hrithik, and yet be able to tell a story which has a political backdrop. Of course, the foreground will always be a nice, engaging, warm human story, but there should be layers beneath. And in mainstream cinema, I think what is very important is that even if you're not able to access the political layers, you should be able to enjoy it at face value. But of course, if you do access the layers, you will enjoy the film much more. And that's been the struggle, really, and will always be the struggle to be able to be political while making mainstream cinema.
Moving away not just from, of course, you want to say certain things in your cinema, but you've also talked a lot about in your interviews about how committed you are to the ideas of identity and secularism outside of it. One of the things, like Adi, I'm completely apolitical, and one of the things I've been very sort of heartened by in Bollywood, in the film industry, not the movies, but the film industry itself, is how much it has been a case of nobody really caring who you are, and in terms of whether you're Hindu, whether you're Muslim, or anything else, because honestly, the only God worshipped is the box office.
True.
So I've been extremely sort of concerned at the way I think the industry is becoming polarized.
True.
In the last few years. How do you feel about that? Because I've never seen this kind of thing before where the discourse is just becoming more shrill.
It's just reflecting what our society is becoming. I mean, the industry is a part of our society, and our society is becoming polarized in the last couple of years, and so is the film industry. You're right. I mean, the discourse has been ugly at times, name calling and, hitting below the belt, just, trying to win brownie points with the regime in power. I mean, it has become a little ugly, and it is an industry, you're right, where actually your religious identity has never really played a role
Not at all.
in who
Like,
you
who
are,
thought about
or
it?
how successful you are, or what you did, or are you doing this film because you're from a certain community or with a certain sort of ideology. But yes, you're right, it is a very disturbing trend that our industry is also becoming very polarized. I mean, this whole word intolerance has of course become, you don't know whether you should say it or not say it, because there'll be like, thousands of people jumping down your throat. But there is definitely a growing intolerance in our industry, in our society, about anything which is contentious, about anything which goes against the say what the regime in power right now has a viewpoint. If you go against them, it's never a discussion. If I tweet something right now, it could be an experiment. In the next 10 minutes, you'll hear the choicest abuses in Hindi, if you're interested, coming down on my timeline. And what does that mean? That just means there is nobody wants to listen to a counterpoint. There is just no discussion left. And I experienced this even during the release of Bajrangi Bhaijaan. So when I announced the title Bajrangi Bhaijaan, I had the VHP screaming and shouting that he's making a film about love jihad. Anyway, strange concept that they have, love jihad, because they assumed it's a story between a Muslim man and a Hindu woman. And they kept sending hate mail, and they had people outside my house stopping my mother and saying, your son should not make these kind of films. And that went on.
Stopped your mom?
Yeah. They never stopped me. I don't know why they never stopped me, but they would always stop my mom. Maybe they knew I have some Afghan friends with me. So
Khalid kab kam aayega, right?
But and then my trailer came out, and in the trailer Salman Khan is obviously this big Hanuman Bhakt. So I think for 3-4 days they were confused. Ye kya hua? Ye love jihad nahi lag raha hai. So then they said, what should we attack now? And then of course they attacked, and they said, this title is blasphemous and this title cannot exist. How can you put the word Bhaijan after the name of the Lord, Bajrangi? And they went to court. They filed a PIL in the Allahabad High Court. I started getting, it was a joke. We used to get like a legal notice a day in office about this. And, that's when I realized that, there are certain battles which are worth fighting for. And this is a battle which I had said that this I'm not going to back down. And we took it to its logical conclusion. We, honestly, what saddens me is that even other institutions then start getting affected by what is happening here. The censor board was refusing to see our film. And this was a big film. I mean, as Anupama would know, a Salman Khan film is a huge release. And at the point of release, Bajrangi Bhaijaan was probably the widest release India had ever had. More than 5,000 prints. And
they just refused to see it.
They just would not see it. They wouldn't say anything, but they just would not see it.
They're just stalling.
And we were saying, why are they doing this? Because we need to get the census certificate in a particular frame of, in at least about 10 days before release in order to get the prints out, get the international release done. And finally, some calls had to be made and some pressure was put, and the censor board agreed to see our film. It was just 7 days before our release. And I went in and I realized from the way the panel was reacting that they'd been briefed about the film, that it had something in them, but they were confused because obviously there was nothing of that in that film. And they seemed to all have liked the film. They didn't really raise many points with the film, but they said, your title has to change. I said, but why does the title have to change? What's wrong with the title? You've seen the film now. You know that comes from a context within the story. Why would it need to change? They said, no, they can lead to a lot of trouble in the country. I said, the whole world and the uncle knows a film called Bajrangi Bhaijaan is being made. It's a Salman Khan film. If there had to be trouble, there would have been trouble over the past 1 year. Why will there be trouble after the release? Because in the film, there's nothing wrong with the title. And they just kept insisting on that. They said, you take your pick. Take Bhaijaan or Bajrangi. I said, that is just not going to work for me. I decided to call their bluff. They knew that they're trying to push me to the corner. What happens is that we do become soft targets when a film is coming up for release. There's like hundreds of crores riding on that film. I take a stupid decision. There are a lot of third-party interests that get hurt. Theatre owners get hurt. Everybody who has a stake in the pie gets hurt. And they were pushing me into that 7 days before the release, he's going to relent and he's going to say, okay, just give me either Bajrangi or Bhaijaan, toss a coin and take one of them. I decided to call their bluff. And I said, okay, I'll tell you what. I will not release on Eid. And that really got them scared because they said, Eid is such a big deal about a Salman Khan. The festival release is a big deal. I said, I won't. I became a little filmy. I gave them a filmy dialogue. I said, I have Salman Khan in my film. The day I release will be Eid for me.
Too much!
So they said, oh shit, this guy doesn't want Eid. I said, you give this to me in writing that I cannot use Bajrangi Bhaijaan, and I'll see, how I need to deal with this. So that scared them, because they knew at that point in time, it's a very high-profile film. The moment I step out, call for a press conference, everybody will be there. They will want to question, why can't Bajrangi Bhaijaan be the title? So they said, okay, give us some time. They made me sit outside for half an hour, and then I was called back in, and we got the title, Bajrangi Bhaijaan. So I think that this is definitely a reflection of what's happening today in India. And there are lots of cases that are happening where films definitely are soft targets. So they're always attacked. One, for publicity. Two, they definitely want to try and control the content that we are creating and what we're trying to say.
But does that in any way, do experiences like this, when you're writing, which you're doing now, you're writing the next one, do you think at all, somewhere at the back of your head, is there any thought that what will be the response to this?
Yeah, it does. Unfortunately, it does creep in. When you're writing, sometimes you start thinking, oh, wait a minute, now will this mean this? But then sometimes you say, heck with it. We'll fight this battle when you come to it. But the unfortunate bit is that, yes, these thoughts do come in, because you know that there'll be a certain hostility to some of the things that you're trying to say. And the fact that these kind of thoughts come in to you when you're writing a script is sad. We shouldn't. We should
yeah,
be
you're
just
self-censoring them.
Exactly. And a lot of people must be succumbing to it. I must say, honestly, that because I'm doing big films with big stars, I do have a lot of, weight that I can push around. And maybe, I could have done that because it was a big Salman Khan film. But some other smaller film might not have been able to take that position with them. And they would have had to, go for half a title. So that unfortunately is something that we always constantly having to fight.
Kabir, one more question, and then I'll open it up to the public. So what do you think is the most important quality for a director to have?
Patience, definitely. And I think being able to see different perspectives and yet stick to what you're doing. I think the most important thing is to be able to take different views, hear them out, and yet be able to go ahead with what you think is correct. I think that definitely is the most important for a director, because when you're actually making a film, there's so many inputs that you're getting, so many suggestions from your actors, and if you're the way I deal with my crew is I allow everybody to come and give me their point of view. You get so many different sort of influences when you're making the film. You need to be able to sort of understand those and still figure out, but I think I'll still go with my gut feeling, and I think this is what is going to be correct, and carry on.
So you have to be able to trust your gut.
Yeah. I think that's the only, I honestly, and I've said this often, you can only make a film for yourself. I honestly believe that a filmmaker makes a film that he or she likes to watch. The films I make are the films I would like to watch. I've always struggled as a audience of Bollywood films, watching love stories set in a vacuum. I would always wonder why is this happening, and that's why my favorite filmmakers would be somebody like a Mani Ratnam, or, where there's always a certain context to the story. So I said, when I get a chance to make films, I'll try and make the films that I want to watch, and I think that's the only way you can do it, because the moment you start thinking about the other person, let me make a film for this person, let me make a film for this section of society, you're going to go wrong, because you don't know them. The only person you know truly is yourself.
Okay, guys, who has questions?
Yeah.
Oh, lots.
Sorry.
Sure. The lady in the back.
Hi, my name is Priya Prakash from London Business School. To begin with, I'm a huge Bollywood buff, so I'm glad that you guys are here and I was able to listen to you. My question is, while growing up, we saw a lot of movies which were chauvinistic, where things like कब तक चीखेगी चिल्लाएगी एक दिन हसीना मान जाएगी, those kind of things were talked about. Over time, that seems to have changed. So from an insider's perspective, do you think it's been a conscious decision, looking at the social impact of these kind of movies?
Firstly, I unfortunately, it's not changed enough. I think it still is pretty much there. yes, it's become better. I think what has happened and why it's changing is because a lot of things that are changing in Bollywood today is because there's a lot of new blood coming in from different parts of the country. Earlier, there was a bit of a barrier for directors to enter, coming and try and tell new stories. Today, there's an excitement for new storytellers. There's an excitement that somebody coming from a Jamshedpur or a Patna or a Mysore will bring in something new, will bring in something unique. That has, I think, helped in bringing in new voices, which has helped change some of the stereotypes and some of the issues that you have spoken about. But it's still not enough. I still think we have a long way to go in mainstream cinema, especially when it comes to gender issues. There's a lot of distance we have to cover.
But Kabir, you don't think it's also, some of the changes also happened because so many more women work in the business now? I remember when I started reporting like 20 years ago, I mean, I've been on sets where literally it was me, Madhuri Dixit, her mother, and a hairdresser. There were 4 of us. And those were the only women on a set of 200.
Yeah.
And I think Mansoor's film, the Aishwarya Shah Rukh one.
Yeah, Josh.
Yeah. Josh was the first time I saw female ADs.
Okay.
And slowly women are everywhere. And I think that naturally has to, bring about some change, though not enough are in positions of power, which is why we don't have enough change.
Yeah, you're right. Definitely. I think, I think 4 of my ADs are all
women, right?
My first AD, Karishma, she's firsted 3 of my films. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of women coming into the industry. A lot of them are becoming directors.
Yeah.
Not too many of them are writers, strangely, I think, but that's also slowly changing. But I think that would definitely bring in a change. I mean, the fact that more women would come in as writers would definitely change the way a lot of these issues are being tackled.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Khan and Mrs. Chopra. So, Mr. Khan, the kind of movies you make, they require you to go outside your comfort zone. And this is not just making movies that are better, it means going into dangerous territory. And I can't imagine things going wrong with Bajrangi Bhaijaan, but with Phantom, when you have a number 1 wanted terrorist commenting on your film, does that stop you? Does that inhibit you from still going ahead with the release? Or now when you're writing a new script, does that play on your mind? What will the reactions be? And not from the people, but from people who many of us fear.
Not really, because the moment you are going to make a political comment and in a mainstream film, you are going to get a reaction. So obviously, if it's a film that's showing Lashkar in a certain light, you are going to get a reaction from the Lashkar. You are going to get a reaction from Hafiz Saeed. So I don't think you should be scared of that. If you're venturing into that territory, I think it's part of the game. And definitely, as I said, in mainstream cinema, if you're going to be making political comments, there's going to be a lot of reactions coming your way. Whether it's on social media, whether it's actually physically people appearing in front of your house, or whether demonstrations happening in different cities. That's going to be part of the game. I don't think one should back down from that. As long as you're convinced in what you're saying is correct and what you want to say is important.
Kabir, your wife doesn't say just send them to Switzerland, let them sing.
She's like John. She also calls me suicide bomber. She said, why do you always and she's known me of course, when I was doing my documentary. She said, why do you always choose the hellholes of the world to go? Like people go to, different places. Correct. You also want. No, but I think she's used to
Paris, there's, there's Zurich. What's with Afghanistan, man? Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Kabir and Rishabh. Thanks very much for a fantastic presentation. Just a simple question. Why do some of the Khans they certify India as intolerant before certain elections, and then a few weeks down the line, just before the film release, they certify the same India as tolerant? Thank you.
Let's not do certain Khans. Let's go specific. There's no press here. So
Amir, no.
Amir,
look, you are part of establishment. She's part of press. So
please
be candid. Don't try and act like holier than thou. Okay?
I'm not trying holier than thou.
She's part of the press and you're part of the entertainment, publicity.
I'm saying when you
business.
use a term like some of the Khans.
So don't be preachy. Don't be preachy.
I'm saying when you say things like some of the Khans, it makes the Khans
because not all of the Khans. Not all of the Khans.
Let him answer. Yeah. Let him respond.
Yeah, I'm saying.
You asked me to name them. So
yeah, I'm said let's be specific because when you say the Khans, we are not a clan that's come down from. Sorry. Yeah, so please name them. I can't talk about all the Khans. So, yeah, so can you give him the mic? If you be specific about which Khan, I'll try and say if I have a point of view about that.
So why did Amir Khan and Shah Rukh Khan certify, in their own words, India as intolerant before certain elections?
Which elections?
And then Bihar elections. And just before their next film releases, they certify the same India as tolerant. And I would like to see some tolerance here to my question, please. Thank you.
I would love it, sir, if you'd be more specific, because you're still being very
Amir
generalized.
hasn't had a release.
Amir, which release are you talking about? So if you be more specific, I can answer you. Which release of Amir are you talking about?
Amir is waiting for the release of his next film.
When is that coming, sir?
You know better than I do.
Yeah, but it's like more than a year from now.
He's preparing for it, you know that.
I think, you know what, sir? You just proved the point I spoke about some time back. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, he's waiting. Can you give it to him?
I hope you're not on my Twitter timeline.
Hi. Thank you.
That's
Yes, please.
Thank you so much for your conversation. I've heard the process of making films is very grueling and timetables always get extended. I was wondering, will Indian filmmaking ever have, let's say, the American efficiency where the timetable is not dictated by the actor, but the timetable dictates the actor, not the actor dictates the timetable?
You know, actually, this is a bit of a myth now, because, you know, ever since Bollywood has become more corporate, we do stick to deadlines. None of my films have ever overshot. The only film that actually we went beyond schedule was Kabul Express, because of the security threat, you know, we had to stop filming. But otherwise, we have pretty organized shoots. Yes, there is, of course, you know, erratic behavior from stars. But, you know, that erratic behavior from stars is in Hollywood also. It's not that it's only from stars in Bollywood. And actually, when you're making a film with them, you sort of plan that erratic behavior into your schedule.
Your buffer dates for erratic behavior.
So you don't be stupid and say, okay, let's start this day at 7 o'clock. It ain't going to happen. So you say, let's start at 11 o'clock, and then you're safe. So then you plan, you know, a certain number of days that you shoot. But having said that, definitely Bollywood is becoming much more professional. You know, the moment corporate money comes in, then there's an accountability. You need to be able to say, I'm going to finish this film in so many days. Every day costs you, especially if you're shooting abroad. You know, like if I was to shoot in London, an average shoot would cost me about 40 to 50 lakhs a day. So, you know, if I was to overshoot by 5 days, that's 2.5 crores. That's a lot of money. So it's definitely become much more planned and organized.
Excuse me, ma'am. Could we have a question from this section?
Oh, of course. I can't see. Sorry, these lights are in my eyes. Yeah.
I didn't even know there are people sitting there.
I'll stand up and
Sorry, guys. We just can't see anything.
Thanks a lot for this insightful conversation, and Kabul Express is my favorite movie of yours.
Thank you.
I just would like to have a more detailed information about how do you deal with the dilemma of being able to put forward what you have in your mind that is a very political and artistic approach in a very mainstream cinema that people could get a hang of.
Well, I mean, we sort of discussed that. It's a process. It's really that I don't really have a solution for that. It's something you just need to keep trying. Sometimes you get it right. Sometimes it goes wrong. But it is definitely a bit of a struggle in trying to bring in a political context in mainstream cinema, and yet, you know, not make it preachy or not make it. I don't think the film should be about the politics, honestly. The film should be about the human story, and then the politics should be the background. The politics should be in the layers beneath, and then that's when it begins to work. Because the moment the film becomes about the politics, I think a mainstream audience will disengage and not really go for your film. So it is a process which we're all trying to struggle with and get it right. Hopefully we'll get it right more often than not.
You know, Kabir, many directors now working today talk about sort of finding lip sync songs a real challenge. Characters breaking. Do you have that? Do you
Huge problem.
Really? Why?
I don't know. I love lip sync songs. I love watching. I'm a complete film buff, and I love watching. You know, I've grew up on Amitabh Bachchan films, but. Initially, like Kabul Express had no lip sync songs. New York had no lip sync songs. I tried to write them into Ek Tha Tiger. I think they were a bit of a disaster. They were there, but it wasn't comfortable. I don't know whether I've changed myself or whether I think it's the story that demands its own treatment. But when I was writing Bajrangi Bhaijaan, they just came in so organically. Like I was surprised by the time I finished the script. I had 6 songs in it. they were not all lip sync. I think 3 were lip sync and 3 were background. But they just came naturally. And now when I'm writing some other scripts, in some of them I find myself being very comfortable placing lip sync songs. In some I just can't. So it is a bit of a struggle for me, definitely. And I know that a lot of other filmmakers, my contemporaries, also have a bit of a problem placing them, because our audience today is not the audience of, say, 10 years ago, which said, okay, Ghana, okay, let's go, go to the loo or get a smoke and come back. Today, a misplaced song in a film can destroy a film. Your audience is just not going to come back. I've seen some very good films where there's a very engaging narrative happening. There's something sort of you're totally in the film, and a song comes and boom, it's over. You've lost the thread, and then you just are not able to get back into the film. So I think, and what is important, and which is a great development, is today it's not necessary to have songs. That old conventional wisdom that you have to have 4 or 5 songs to sell your film is not necessary. Yes, you need songs as marketing tools for your film during the publicity phase, which you can always do as music videos or songs that are not necessarily in the film. But I think it's better to stay away from a song if it's spoiling your narrative than to just bung it in to make the film more successful.
True, I agree. But I always think that like songs is what makes us unique.
True.
It is what gives us the ability to stand apart from everything that Hollywood and Western cinema is. So I get very afraid of a Bollywood without songs.
Absolutely. And I don't think we'll ever be able to fully move away from it. But there are some times you can use them in background score. And one of the greatest examples actually is one of Amir's films, which is, for me also, it was a bit of a learning, because when you see the film, you don't realize that they're not lip sync. They're so well integrated into the film. The film called Rang De Basanti. It has a very engaging soundtrack. None of them are lip sync.
Really?
None of them are lip sync.
वो जीप में नहीं गा रहे थे?
They're not singing them. These are all montages to the songs, and it's a great example, Rang De Basanti, of having
to revisit
songs.
That. Yeah, I didn't
and
realize.
Realize that they're not lip sync, and yet they work so well and taking the story forward. So I think it's very important that the song needs to take the narrative forward. If it no longer can be an item like, okay, there's some storytelling, then let's stop and then let's have a song and then come back to storytelling. Unless your song is taking the story forward, I don't think today's audience is going to accept it.
What do you feel about item numbers? Sorry, guys, I know it's your turn, but I can't stop. What do you feel about item numbers? Since you said the word item, I have to ask.
I've not enjoyed too many of them. I'm a little uncomfortable. I find them forced. I won't take a moralistic position and say that I'm against item numbers. I've enjoyed some of them. But I find a lot of them forced. And I find them forced because there's some sort of a marketing spiel that comes that an item number is a great marketing product, so let's put it in. I'm not sure. I'm always struggling with this whole this issue of whether songs are really needed or not. I know that they're needed for marketing. When you're marketing a film for the first 4-5 weeks, when you're promoting a film, you need songs playing out on radio and television and all that. But I can't think of too many item numbers which have really sort of changed the fate of a film. There are some, but I don't think there are too many.
Okay, there's so many hands. Kabir, you pick now.
Please.
Thank you for a very engaging conversation. My name is Sanam Arora. I run the National Indian Students Union in the UK. My question is, and in fact to both of you, anyone who wants to answer it, question is, our award ceremonies are a bit of a joke, frankly speaking.
He's just come from Toifa, ask him.
I hope that wasn't.
Looking sleepy, it's because I haven't slept all night, because the damn thing wouldn't end. Finally, they gave me my award at 2:30 in the morning.
Congratulations. Give me a round of applause.
No, but you're right, it's a joke. So, unfortunately, it's also taken away the joy of getting an award.
Precisely.
The problem is they're all TV shows. And we need to recognize that these are essentially TV shows which need to generate TRPs. So the actual action of giving an award is the part that they want to just speed up and get rid of. It's the show, the performances that is going to sell the show, the faces that there will be there. When you see the show, you'll see a Salman Khan sitting there throughout the show, right? For those 3 hours, and he'll be doing his slap. He gives those reactions in 5 minutes. because he's been paid a certain amount of money to come and sit there. So he'll come there, he'll whistle, he'll bring one of the camera guys, and so okay, take all these reactions. So he'll laugh, he'll clap, he'll cheer, he'll do the, 5 minutes, ho gaya? Okay, gets up and goes away. Then the next guy will come, he'll sit for 5 minutes. It's a joke. And it's, if you think it's bad on TV, you have to sit through them in real, it's torture.
Yeah, it is.
Torture.
It is.
Like every time we go together, last night also, my wife Mini, she said, this is the last time I'm ever coming with you for a award function, because they really go on and on and on. And I think the only way it'll really change, we were just discussing this before we started. I think we need to also get an academy in. We need to get, you know, a body of 2,000, 3,000 people from the industry who vote for films. That's the only way you can remove prejudices and biases. That's the only way you will start respecting those awards. And there need to be fewer of them. The problem is every channel needs at least 2. You know, so Colors needs 2, Sony needs 2, Star needs 2, Z needs 2, so you end up 10. So when the season comes for awards, that's all you're doing.
Do you remember who you're thanking? Sony, Colors?
Oh, God. Yeah, I think it's just, I think it just comes out. You're not even thinking what you're saying. It just comes out. You just change the name of the channel.
Thank you very much. So if I could bring your attention up here as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hello, Mr. Khan. Congratulations for your recent success and wish you all the best for future endeavors. My name is Anish Gohil and I'm a consultant. My next question to you is, when you're making a movie, it comes with a huge star cast, a huge best crews around the world and best locations around the world. And for that, you need to have a huge budget. How easy or difficult is it for you to raise a budget for that movie?
You know, honestly, raising a budget is surprisingly easy today in Bollywood. There's a lot of money because of the corporates. There's a lot of money that's come in. But unfortunately, all that money is chasing only the stars. So if you have a star, raising money is very easy. So the problem is the films that don't need money has all the money chasing them. The films that need the money, nobody's ready to offer them anything. So that's the biggest problem. It's how do you raise money for films without the stars? That's the struggle in Bollywood today. If you have a new idea, you want to make it in a limited budget, you don't have a star, it's a very difficult task. The moment you get a star, people are banging down on your door and saying, take the money from us.
But Kabir, when does this change? When do scripts become stars?
They are already, I mean, there are some films now that you're already seeing, you know, where they don't have stars, but they've made money for themselves. I think the moment you start getting more of those, that's when it'll change. It has to, the corporates need to understand that they need to start backing good cinema. The corporates today are all busy chasing the stars. It's definitely, I mean, our industry is definitely very, very star-driven right now. You take the pick.
Gentlemen.
My name is Paresh Rugani. I'm a chartered accountant, but I'm into soft skills now. So I believe that people are the most important ingredient. They're not useless, they are used less. Thank you to Sanam Arora and the LSE for inviting me. I think these are the great assets, you know, the NRI, the National Resource of India, the National Reserve of India. And I think it's just brilliant that all the students are here. And I'm sure your presence to them and us is worth more than any presents anyone could give you. So like it says for Air India, the most advanced aircraft, I honestly, sincerely, on a seriously side, believe that you're one of the sort of most advanced Bollywood directors I've come across personally.
Thank you, that's very sweet of you. Thank you.
As your name says, Kabir Khan, so that's KK. So K is for knowledge, and K is for kind, and Khan in Gujarati means sweet and sugar. So you very much. But my question to you is, which I asked Amitabh Bachchan when he came here, winners don't do different things. They do things differently. Winners never quit, and quitters never win. What is your winning ingredient, your unique selling point, your passion, your enthusiasm? So what keeps you up in the morning and you haven't had any sleep and yet, what's your purpose? What's your winning ingredient?
I think it's just that I really love what I'm doing. I think that's what keeps me going. I sometimes say I feel I've never worked for a day in my life. You know, I do what I love doing and I get paid for it. So I don't think I can ask for anything better. I think passion. So the answer would be passion. If you just are passionate about what you do and if you love what you do, it'll just keep you going.
Now you pick.
Okay.
Who?
Sorry, I still can't see the people. Was there any hands up there?
So films like Slumdog Millionaire have been criticized for not representing India, like not portraying India in like the proper light. But then if you look at Bollywood, it's not like we're doing any better. So my question is, do filmmakers take that into consideration, the responsibility of portraying India in the right light? Do you take that into consideration?
It's always a classical thing. Like somebody from outside portrays you wrongly, you sort of take notice of it and you get more angry about it. But somebody from inside is doing it, I think you don't really care about it. But you're right. I mean, Bollywood is not really doing a great job of representing true India. And that, again, as I said, is a whole part of the struggle in mainstream cinema. How do we keep changing and getting more correct portrayals of what's happening in India? See, at the end of the day, you have to understand that Bollywood is made up of diverse individuals. So a lot of times when people ask me a question about why is Bollywood doing this or why is Bollywood, it becomes difficult to answer because no two filmmakers really thinking alike. You know, I have a certain ideology, Madhur Bhandarkar has a certain ideology, Imtiaz Ali has a certain ideology, Raju Irani has a certain ideology. So they're all different individuals trying to do what they think is correct, or they're doing it for whatever reason they feel is correct. But because there's new talent coming into Bollywood, and I always say that I think what will really change Bollywood is when more and more fresh talent comes in. That's the only way we'll evolve, because otherwise there's going to be a status quo.
Okay, the guy in the blue.
Okay, your choice. Your pick.
I'll pick, and then you pick the last one, because I've just been told 5 more minutes. So.
Hi, my name's Samar Rizvi, I'm a student at the LSE. Ms. Chopra, you talked about how there's nobody, maybe about a couple of years ago, no one tended to care about which religion you came from and all of that. But in some sense, doesn't that reduce Bollywood's soft power? Because then you think about, say, Asaduddin Owaisi is then what people think when you think about Muslim, not Kabir Khan or Salman Khan or Shah Rukh Khan. So in that sense, doesn't that reduce, in some sense, Bollywood's soft power?
You know, but this question of yours actually goes beyond just Bollywood. The problem in any minority community has always been that those who don't wear their Muslim identity strongly are never considered to be Muslim enough, and are never accepted as role models for the community, which is really sad. Why am I a lesser Muslim than Owaisi? Why is Salman a lesser Muslim than Owaisi? But when it comes to a projection of them as a role model for Muslims, will always be the people who wear their religious identity on their sleeves. And I think it goes beyond our industry. That's what's happening in our society and has been happening for years.
Kabir, you pick.
The girl in the striped sweater.
Hello, my name is Rakhi Keshwara, and my question is, in the recent years, India has really empowered female equality and just empowered them. So what do you think about the equality in the paychecks, as in like for the leading actors versus for the leading actresses?
That's quite a big issue right now in Bombay. A lot of people talking about. Really, it comes down to pure economics. It's a question of who's getting the bums into the theaters, who's getting them onto the seats. The problem is, fortunately or unfortunately, the three Khans and Hrithik or Akshay, these are the guys who are getting a certain what we call opening. Opening in sort of film trade parlance is the star power. When people really don't know what the film is about, but they come in on day one because of the presence of a star. Now, the fact is that these stars are bringing in an opening figure of 30 crores, 35 crores, 40 crores on day one. Versus
What was the Bajrangi opening, Kabir?
Bajrangi opening actually was surprisingly very small for a Salman film. The first day, the weekend went on to become the biggest weekend of.
Right, they did 100 crores in like 2 days.
No, in three days they did 105.
An entire 3 days.
Yeah. But the first day was actually even smaller than Ekta Tiger, but it was the last Friday of Ramzan. We didn't release on.
And Ekta Tiger was 32.
Ekta Tiger was 33 in those days.
In those days.
That was very big because the the next big one was 22. So it jumped from 22 straight to. But Tiger had this huge buzz. Tiger was also 15th of August. Now, that's a national holiday. You can't beat that because there you can't even go to a mall. Everything is shut. You just have to watch films. So national holidays are definitely the biggest openers. But yeah, I think it's basically a question of, if somebody's going to bring in 40 crores on day one, then they will demand a bigger paycheck. If a Kangana says, I want to be paid the same as Salman, it's not going to be possible till she brings in the same opening figures. I'm not talking about the ultimate figure of a film because that's, post the first day, the film takes over. But on the first day, it's just pure star power, and that's what dictates. So if Salman, Shah Rukh or Amir are taking 50, 60 crores per film, it's because they're getting that kind of money in one day.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, I'm so sorry. I've just been told we have to wrap. But thank you for being such a great audience, and thank you, Kabir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was lovely.